Hey, what's up guys? I'm Andrew, this is RS Built, and on today's episode, I'm changing the oil on the Murcielago. I got 12 quarts of 5W40 to put in, so let's get right into it. Alright guys, so before I jump into the oil change, I want to just briefly go over a couple things. First off, the reason that I'm doing this is just to get some fresh oil in the car. For those of you that aren't aware, when you use your motor oil, it becomes slightly acidic, and that can over time cause components to start corroding. And because I don't know when this last oil was changed, like I said before, I have no documentation on the car whatsoever. I'm going to go ahead and get this oil changed out. With my luck, it was probably changed the day before the wreck because it was right back in February, but regardless, I think it'll be good just to get the oil out of there. Now I know exactly what I'm running, what's in here, and that's going to be a pretty good starting point for me. Right, so our oil change journey begins on the left side of the car behind this panel. So the way the oil system works on the Murcielago V12 is it's actually a dry sump system. So the majority of the oil lives in a tank right behind this panel, and the rest of the oil lives in a pan underneath the engine, which we obviously can't see right now, but don't worry, we'll get over there eventually. Alright, so before I even get started on pulling this panel out, I just wanted to point out that in typical Lamborghini fashion, we have both Phillips screws at the top, and we've got Torx at the bottom on the same panel. So 2 tools to take off one panel seems reasonable to me. So I got the panels off underneath. As you can see, there's quite a bit of grass tucked underneath that panel. And you look underneath, there's still a lot of grass under there, which is honestly super surprising because it looked like that panel was just shoved up a little bit. Could not tell at all how much grass got underneath there. But it's all coming out. Alright, so now that we got our panels off underneath, it's time to go ahead and drain the oil. So I'm going to go ahead and crack this bolt right there with the impact, and then just undo it by hand. Got my catch pan right here. That's 8 quarts. There should be 7 in that tank, if the internet is to be believed. Got my impact at the 17mm right here. So let's go ahead and do it. Well, there were supposed to be 7 quarts of oil in that tank. As you can see, I have the tank cracked, and we have a slow drip at most. And there's clearly not 7 quarts of oil in here. There's maybe 1, if that, maybe half a quart. So, like I said, this is a dry sump system. So I'm gonna go ahead and crack the drains on the oil pan as well. Maybe all the oil is in there because it's cold. I have no idea, but I'm gonna go ahead and crack those 2 and we'll go from there. All right, so I did a little bit of reading, and it kind of sounds like when the engine's been sitting for a while, all of the oil ends up seeping back down into the oil pan underneath, which this is typically only supposed to hold 2 or 3 quarts. But because this car has been sitting, maybe this is where the other missing like 10 quarts went. So I'm going to go ahead and crack both of our drain plugs here. They're both supposed to be triple squares. So this guy over here, see, that one is a triple square. It's not a Torx, so it's actually a 12 point, it's like 3 squares put together. But then over here, we have just a standard hex. So it's a little weird that we've got 2 different styles of drain bolts in here. Maybe one got changed out during an oil change or something like that, but that's all right. I'm gonna go ahead and get both of these popped off, and hopefully we find our missing 10 quarts of oil. have a good bingo. Check that out. That's where all of our oil was. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this drain for a little bit. Also, this oil looks brand new, so this is probably a huge waste. So while we are finishing up draining over here, I'm gonna go ahead and crack this oil plug right here, and hopefully we'll go ahead and get the rest of the oil out of the engine. Alright, so typically when you're doing an oil change job, you're going to want to change this filter out as well. That's our white and blue guy here. But for this job, I'm actually opting to not do it, making that executive decision based on the fact that our oil looked pretty new coming out. So there's no sense in replacing a brand new oil filter as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it for the time being at least, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, here's the situation that I'm facing right now. So at some point, somebody must have stripped the drain bolts in both the tank, which is this bolt here, and one of the bolts in the pan, which is that bolt, because both of these bolts are bigger than what I was expecting to find. So the one bolt that's there, that was the, whatchamacallit, the triple square, that one's there, that one's the right size. What we have here, so this washer is what I expected to put on there. As you can tell, it's obviously smaller than the washer that came off. So the issue that I have is nobody sells M18 washers. So this is an M16, inside diameter is 16 millimeters, outside is 22. And nobody sells these washers. So unfortunately, I'm stuck. I'm gonna have to go in and order some new ones online and wait for those to show up. So unfortunately, this is where the oil change is gonna stop. Alright, so here's what I ended up doing. For the time being, I just went ahead and reused the one crush washer. I don't like the idea of reusing it, so I actually am not going to put any oil in right now. I'm going to go ahead and order up a new crush washer, the correct size. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and leave it for the time being. I do have the correct size of the rear, so that is this guy here. But the front one up there is the wrong size. So I don't want to change oil more times than I have to. So I'm just going to leave the oil out of it for a few days. It's not going to hurt anything. And we'll come back to it once I get the parts in. Alright guys, so this is what I've been waiting on. It took a whole week to get this in the mail, but finally have our assorted copper crush washer set. Got everything, probably every size I will ever need. So we've got everything up to M20. So I needed some M18s. Like I said before, no one sells them in the stores, so had to go get these on Amazon, but it was like 15 bucks, and I think that's 15 bucks very well spent. Right, so I went ahead and got the copper washer changed out on the front bolt. So again, we have the new copper washer back here. We have a new copper washer up here now. So I'm gonna go ahead and get both of those guys torqued down to 45 Newton meters or 33 foot-pounds. And then we have our tank bolt right here, and that one is going to get torqued to 28 foot-pounds. So the torque spec is like 28 to 30, and I'm torquing to 28 because this other nut up here is actually torqued to that 30 foot-pounds. And so what you want to do is crack that nut and not, or be able to crack the drain plug, but not the nut on top for the whole assembly. So we're torquing this guy a little bit less, and hopefully that should let us get this plug out easily again next time. Right, I got all of the plugs torqued, so now it's time to start filling our oil. So we've got, is right back here, very difficult to get to is our oil fill cap. So I'm going to go ahead and get a funnel on that and start getting oil in. fill neck cap is on, and that means that I am done. So typically, if you're doing this job, you would then go and prime the engine, start the engine, let it warm up, and check the oil level. But again, since I don't have any keys, we're not going to do that. So this is absolutely as far as I'm going to get for the time being. And now, I've just got to clean up this mess. Alright guys, that's a wrap. I'm happy to finally get that oil change checked off the list. I've been looking forward to doing that for a little while now. So I just want to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.